What's going on, people? We're back again, and we're bringing to you the video that we promised about, maybe a week or two ago?
About two
Probably
weeks
a
ago
couple
now.
weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, a video going into depth concerning the definition of the church, defining the church. And as we said before, this is something that I believe that if we can come into an agreement and reach a consensus on just speaking on truth, as we said before, coming from John chapter 4, we are to worship Him in spirit and in truth. I believe if we can come to reach consensus on this, that we really can come together in unity, as those who believe in the one God, one truth, and one faith. So,
You're more optimistic than me.
oh yeah.
The church. What is the church? What does it mean? Where does the word church come from? We seek to shed light on these questions in the hope of creating unity amongst those who would serve our Creator in both spirit and in truth.
All right, guys. So let's get into it here. So the definition. This is what we want to focus on today: defining the term church, what it is, and if we can reach this consensus, I think it's gonna be really good for the body of believers across the world. So let's talk about the word church. Church. What does it mean? Let's look at some definitions of the word church. So obviously, it's an English term, right? The church.
Yep.
Let's look at a few definitions. Even if you just type this into a Google search, your Webster's dictionary is going to give you a few different terms. Let's look at some of those terms and definitions for excuse me. Let's look at some of those definitions. Church, a building used for public Christian worship. Right. A particular Christian organization, typically one with its own clergy, buildings, distinctive doctrines, the hierarchy of clergy of Christian organization, especially the Roman Catholic Church. One more,
Of
let's look
course.
at here. Institutionalized religion as a political or social force. So, in the English here, we see that the church is pretty much singled out to be a place,
Basically.
right? And
For the
and
most
in
part.
in most cases, that's pretty much what we grew up to kind of believe and have the thought process surrounding the word church, thinking of it as a place. Um,
It's an old building with a steeple on it or an old store that nobody uses anymore.
but regardless, it's a place,
Yeah, it's a
right?
place.
Yeah, that's pretty much the consensus across the board for what church is. He said, "Hey, we're going to church today. Are you going to go to church certain Sunday or this day or whatever? Are you going to go here?" And I think that a lot of that has to do with just where things come from. You have even across different religions, you have whether you have a mosque, whether you
Yep.
have a synagogue. These are places of worship, and that's pretty much the consensus. But when we actually look at the word, as I said earlier, this is a word that's has English roots, right? This has English roots. So what we have to do, I think, I think it'll benefit the body as a whole to speak on this in a truthful manner to say that hey, the word is an English based word and it has English roots. Therefore, we have to figure out okay, if this book is an Eastern book but it has English roots, to me that seems to be that seems to actually but those
It's
two thought
backwards.
processes has seems to butt heads a little bit. What's that?
It's backwards.
It's backwards. I would say backwards, but I think those two things are different. Those two things
Yeah.
are very much so different. Why? Well, because when you look at the English words, the English language didn't make an appearance. Old English didn't make an appearance until like 400 AD or 400 BCE. I mean CE, right? Common Era or however you utilize it. I don't know when they changed it, but it used to be AD and now CE. But regardless, you have a 400 or so years after Christ passed and rose, right? So this idea that the English language is something that is infallible, you can't be so dogmatic on that, right? Given the fact that you have 400 years after the Messiah died, this is when the language came into being. Therefore, that is to say, those authors of scripture, the things that we hold up to be infallible, they weren't writing, they weren't speaking
In
in
English.
English.
That's why I said it was backwards.
Ah, makes sense. I get it now. Now we can be on the same page. But yeah, so the word church basically didn't even exist until 400 or so years after the Messiah died and resurrected. So, with that being said, what are the authors of Scripture, right? Whether you say Old, New Testament, what have you, what language were they writing in? What language were they speaking in? And we get some ideas with different scholars, scholarly work, right? We can get some ideas on what language they may have been speaking, what languages they were writing, because we can go back and look at ancient writings, the documents, right? Not originals, because we don't have any originals of the like the prophets, the apostles. We don't have the
Yeah.
original documents, but we do have copies, and a lot of these copies. They sync up and they reach a consensus on a lot of different words, and some of those words that sync up together, uh, we can pretty much find we can pretty much find some hope, at least a little bit of hope to be able to trust what we're reading when we see it. So, but the thing is, we have to go back to those languages. All right, so let's look at some of those languages. All right, we have uh, one is Greek, right? The New Testament. Pretty much most scholars believe that the the New Testament was written in Greek. So we can look at some Greek terms and Greek phrases to be able to find out what words were used for certain English words, like what they were
Yeah.
translated to. And one other thing we also have to think about and look at is that different translations, right? After we these scholars they come together with these different languages and they translate them and different things like that. So basically, what you have is you end up coming up with different versions, all right? You have different versions. You have King James, some of the most prominent ones that we have over here, especially in the West. You got King
King
James version,
James,
right? You got the
NIV.
NIV version, you got the ASB version, all right? You got the NASB version, you got the HIJK Elemental P version, all right? I just made that up, but you get my point, all right? You have so many different versions, right? After the scholars they come together and do their work, they come together and you have different versions, right? So these different versions, sometimes they're going to have different English words depending on the version that you're looking into, and that's why they read differently, right? Different scholars come together and they find out words that may fit a little bit better given transliterations and things of that nature. So, but let's look at some of these things. We want to focus on the word church, right? That's what we're focusing in
You
on.
don't need to look
Church.
at one.
What's that?
You don't need to look at one.
Only look
The
at one.
infallible one.
What's that?
King James.
King James. Let's look at the King
Yeah,
James.
nothing's better than King James.
King James is one that's predominantly used. So let's look at the KJV. All right, why not?
The
King
infallible
James
word of
version.
God.
All right, the word church, and I want to go to and what I want to do is I want to go to a specific text because I think this really does hone in on the essence of what the church is, right, or who the church actually is, right. It gives a good idea, gives us a good idea for us to be able to reach consensus. And I don't think anyone would disagree on the conclusion that we're going to draw up here, because how can you? It's one full of unity and love. But anyway, let's look at this text here. Acts chapter 7. Let's go to Acts chapter 7, and let's go down to verse 37, 38. And this is the one of my favorite chapters in the Bible, right? We have Stephen, if y'all remember. Stephen's defense is kind of what the chapter is kind of what is summed up as. He's giving his defense before those who are trying to kill him, right, for his faith at this point in time. And he's giving his defense. He pretty much goes down from the beginning and kind of
Mhm.
pulls up to where they are currently, right, in time, right, goes through Abraham, Moses, all that stuff, all the good history, and brings it up and trying to show the people how the Messiah fits into that whole story and that whole narrative. He does it so well, like eloquently. He just lists it all out, lets you know that he really knows his stuff, right? So he does that. And once he gets down to once you get down to verse 37, 38, he's talking about Moses and then when they were in the wilderness, right, coming out of Egypt, man. And I'll just read verse 37, 38. It said, "This is that Moses which said unto the children of Israel, a prophet shall Yahuwah your Elohim raise up unto you of your brethren like unto me. Him shall ye hear." A lot of people say he's talking about Messiah there. It's prophetic. Verse 38 says, "This is he that was in the church in the wilderness with the angel which spake to him in the Mount Sinai, and with our fathers who received the likely oracles to give unto us."
See, he said it right there. It was church.
It's church. So church in the
Church.
wilderness though, like what's that about?
It was
Like
it was a wooden hut that they had in there
I guess that's
with a
possible.
steeple on it.
I guess that's possible. And this is why we want to look at definitions. So I
It's an
feel
old
they're
Dollar General.
so important. Definitions are so important because what you have here is a church all the way back in Moses' time, right? All the way back in the wilderness, right? Let's check it out. What is the word that the English word church was translated from, right? In the Greek, we have the word ecclesia. Ecclesia.
Oh God, not like
trying to be like the Blue Letter Bible guy.
Strong's G 1577. Ecclesia. Ecclesia.
Ecclesia.
Sia.
Ecclesia.
I see ya. So yeah, we have the word ecclesia. All right, let's look at some of the different definitions for the word. So we have the ecclesia. The word means to call out. Right, to call out, a calling out, popular meeting place. A popular meeting, not place, but it says a popular meeting, especially a religious congregation, right? Community of members, right? Assembly, a church, gathering of the citizens, assembly of the people convene at a public place of the council for the purpose of deliberating, right? Talking about special important matters. Assembly of the Israelites, right? Let's see, a company of Christians or of those who hoping for eternal salvation through Jesus Christ observe their own religious rites, hold their own religious meetings, and manage their own affairs according to the religions prescribed for the body of the order's sake. And then you have the whole body of Christians scattered throughout the earth, the assembly of faithful Christians already dead and received into heaven. Interesting, right? That's very interesting. So you have different definitions, right? And meanings, but they kind of the word ecclesia basically means to call out. Why? To call out for what? To gather, to meet. And KJV isn't the only version. Obviously, there are many different versions, but there is another one. Let's look at the NIV because a lot of people use NIV. So let's not fail the NIV here. Let's pull up the NIV and see what the NIV says in this same text, Acts chapter 7. Let's see what the NIV has to say. All right, so Acts chapter 7, verse 30. Let's just go read verse 38. He said, talking about Moses, right? It said he was in the assembly in the wilderness. Instead of church, it said the word assembly in the wilderness with the angel who spake unto him on Mount Sinai and with our ancestors, and he received living words to pass on to us. So,
you mean to tell me that the NIV got a better translation than the infallible word of the King James?
Well, better. It's your preference, but the idea is
it's closer to the original meaning, though.
Yeah. There were a few words, and when we looked at the word ecclesia, there were a couple of words that you could pull out that really hone in. Words like congregation, words like assembly. Those words pretty much pull out the essence of what the ecclesia was. Right?
It's not as misleading. I'll put it like that.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. So when we look at the NIV, it says the assembly. So we have assembly, we have church. These things kind of melding together to mean, it has to mean something, right? So if you're kind of catching where we're going with this, I want to go a little bit deeper now into what he's talking about. He's talking about now Stephen here, he's talking about a specific event that took place, and it took place in your Bible. So let's go back and look at the event that he's making reference to. Let's pull back over to Exodus chapter 19, shall we? So Exodus chapter 19. Now I'm going to read through this. I think the whole chapter is great. I'm just going to read through this, and you guys just bear with me. In the 3rd month, when the children of Israel were gone forth out of the land of Egypt, the same day came they into the wilderness of Sinai. Sinai sounds familiar. For they were departed from Rephidim and were come to the desert of Sinai and had pitched in the wilderness, and there Israel camped before the mount. And Moses went up unto Elohim, and Yahuwah called unto him out of the mountain, saying, Thou shalt say to the house of Jacob, and tell the children of Israel, Ye have seen what I did unto the Egyptians, and how I bare you as eagles' wings, and brought you unto myself. Now, therefore, if ye will obey my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine. And ye shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel. I know you all don't want to sit here and
Listen to this guy read a whole chapter of the Bible. Read it on your own time. Here, let me help you guys out.
So Moses went down unto the people and spake unto them. Whew! All right,
And
so
Charlton Heston floats down from the mountain and starts breaking tablets everywhere.
Ten Commandments reference.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically what you have here is the this is the event that Stephen is making reference to. All right. And if you don't believe it, we're gonna look at a couple other texts just to confirm what he's talking about right here. But we have Moses, right? We do have the character of Moses, what Stephen was talking about, Moses, right? We have the place, Mount Sinai, right? And we also have the children of Israel. But what does that have to do with a church, right? Acts chapter 7, it says that there was a church, right, or an assembly at Mount Sinai. NIV says assembly, but we have the word church. So there's a church. Where's the church? We don't see a church in what I just read. All right, we don't see a church. You just see Moses, Mount Sinai, and you have a bunch of people, right? So let's look back a little bit and remember some of these words that we have for ecclesia, all right? But let's just face it back a little bit. Let's go to Exodus chapter 17. All right, so
That's a funny point in the
ecclesia, as I said before, there were a couple of words that we could pull out when we're looking at the word ecclesia that kind of, I think, hold the essence of the word in there. And you have words like congregation, have words like assembly, right? So let's go to Exodus chapter 17 and see how all this ties in. Exodus chapter 17, verse 1 says, "And all of the congregation of the children of Israel journeyed from the wilderness of Sin after the journeys according to the commandment of the Lord, and pitched in Rephidim, and there was no water for the people to drink." So we have a congregation. It's calling them a congregation, right? Remember, that was one of the words that pretty much describes an ecclesia, a congregation. So that's one word. We got congregation here, and let's look at and remember, this is an English word, but even when you go back to the Hebraic word, you have the word I think it's Ida or Eda. I think it's Ida, something like that. Some of y'all Hebraic scholars out there help me out. Ida, I think the word is.
Strong's H 5712. Ada.
You have about 334 uses of this word in at least the King James version, right? So it's a word that's used quite often, but it pretty much just means what it was. It's a congregation, right? It's a group of people, and this is the essence of what ecclesia, the Greek word that was translated for church, means. Let's try another one, right? Assembly. Let's look at the word assembly, and we can still stick here in Exodus, and let's back up to Exodus chapter 16. Let's look at the assembly. And this word it's like over 40 uses, I think, in the Old Testament for this word assembly. And let's go to Exodus chapter 16. Back up one chapter, and let's look at one of the what the text says about this word. It says, "And the children of Israel said unto him," we're looking at verse 3, "said unto them, would to God we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the flesh of pots, and when we did eat bread to the full, for ye have brought us forth into the wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger." This whole assembly with hunger. And the word right there is another English word, but it's translated from the Hebraic word kahal. Kahal. Again, scholars, help me out here. Is that the right way to pronounce it?
Strong's H 6951. Kahal.
Kahal, right? And that word just means a congregation, right? An assembly, a congregation, a company, right? Talking about a group of people, right? Yeah. So this is they refer to themselves as a group of people. And remember, these are words that pretty much culminate the essence of what the ecclesia is, right? So you have assembly, you have congregation, all these words still meaning basically a group of people. So, and that's the thing that all of these words have in common, right? All these words pretty much describe the totality or the whole of a group of people, right? And they are not subject or relegated to a specific location, right? Or a specific religion for that matter, right? So these are some things that they all have in common. So
it's
when
a cohesive group with the collective purpose or collective goal in mind.
Right. And that's a better way to put it, right? Pretty much being on one accord of one
Yeah.
mind, right?
Yep.
But the idea is this is it's a collective, it's a group, right? And looking back to that idea, that kind of leaves room when you look at it that way. That leaves room for one of the definitions that we saw with ecclesia in the first place. Let me kind of go back to that where it says the assembly of faithful believers already dead and received into heaven.
I was
So
gonna make a point, but you go ahead.
so just think about that.
A
You know,
small point.
Hmm.
I said go ahead. It was a little small point, but it's for another video. It'll be all right. Go ahead.
I mean, you can make the point. It's fine.
I just on when you was reading Exodus 19
Mm-hmm.
and you went to verse 15
Right.
and said unto the people, "Be ready for the third day. Do not go near a woman."
Right.
So that whole time he's talking to a group of men.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah, it leads to the structure of the ecclesia
Ah,
from the Bible, but that's for another
yeah.
video.
Another video coming up, the structure of the church. But just think about that, right? Really, like think about the assembly word. When we looked at the word ecclesia, one of the definition that it gave was like a group of the believers that are already dead and and received into heaven, right? Whether or not you believe
Yeah.
that's the case, like they can be the people that have died and gone on. You just think about that. Your grandfather, your grandmother, your father, your mother, your brother, your sister, anybody that's close to you that has already passed and they believed and they were in of the faith, they're still part of the ecclesia. They're still a part of the assembly, the congregation, the church. They're still a part of it. You
Yeah,
know,
they're
so
part
no
of
matter
the
how
group.
far apart you feel from the individual being that they died in their flesh, they're still a part of the
Yeah.
assembly. They're still part of the church, right? So I think there's a deeper meaning when we look into like the definitions in the Greek, the original. What it can kind of give us a sense of what the original authors kind of intended
Yeah.
when they were writing, versus what we look at now is just being a building, right?
Yeah.
Kind of synonymous with, as I said before, different religions where you have a synagogue or a mosque. But I think the heart of the Father, the heart of God, was more so. He really cares about people, right? You know, he's
Yeah.
a people God, being that he created us. So he cares more about the people versus the structure made by man's hands, right? So to speak. So just kind of give that some thought, everyone. You know, and I don't know if there's another point you want to make.
No, we covered just the basics of it anyway.
Right. So that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to come to you all and kind of share with you all our findings on what we have researched and come to see as it pretty much points to the definition of church, right? Because you think about it. When you say church, you can think of so many different. You start thinking about denominations. You start thinking about different statistics. You start thinking about different demographics of people, but it all leads to separation, and that's not what he's about.
I do have another point when it says like going to the point where it says like fail not to assemble yourself, and most people be like, you have to go to church every Sunday.
Yeah,
If you don't go to church on Sunday, like you're going to hell. It's like fail not to assemble yourself, the assembly with other believers.
Ah,
Yeah, be with other believers. Constantly be with other believers. It's not about going to the building on Sunday. Every Sunday I have to go to this specific building. No. Fail not to be around other people in the ecclesia,
in the ecclesia, right?
other people in the group.
Yeah, that's a good point. Good point. So, with all that being said, you all, as I said, we just wanted to kind of share with you some of our findings. Let us know in the comment section what you think. Let us know if you agree, whether you disagree, if we missed something. Hey, and I'm interested. Drop in the comments. Anybody who speaks a different language, whether you bilingual or whatever, what have you, any language we missed, we kind of covered the Greek and the Hebraic just a tad bit for the word church. But drop in the comments below. Any other language for the word church? The word church in another tongue, whether it's Spanish, whether you got any other language, and you speak it and you know the word for the translation for church, drop it in the comment section below. We would love to see it. I love looking at different languages. It's interesting to me. So I'm not like a liturgical guru or anything, but I need some of you all to help me out. I love the Hebraic language. It's something that I like to study up on. So let us know if we said anything that was kind of off with that I pronounced the word
wrong.
Let me know in the comments below.
Ecclesia.
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 Ecclesia. say see ya.
See ya. If we pronounce it wrong, or if there are any other words that you guys know of that you want to, drop in the comment section, hey, let us know. We're always open to learn and grow, because that's what this is all about. So like, subscribe, share this information if you find it helpful and beneficial. We just want to edify the body, glorify our Father in heaven. That's what we're here to do. So we'll be coming up with more videos. If you'd like to see more videos with our findings and our research, and present it to you all, again, like, share, subscribe, so this video can get out there, and we can do what we do to share our findings with you all. So until the next time, continue to love one another, and as always, stay blessed.